Hi everyone, hope you are feeling positive and healthy. Please subscribe with bell notifications if you haven't already, and please don't hesitate to leave your feedback and advice below. Thank you very much. Let's jump into the stories. Am I the unreasonable one for not calling my stepmom, Mom? For context, I am now 18 years old. I tried to keep it simple, but sorry if it's confusing. My parents separated when I was 3, and they have always been on good terms, so they shared custody. My mom remarried 2 years after the separation, and so I have grown up with my mom, my dad, and a stepdad. This isn't a cliché stepdad is the bad guy thing. We've always gotten along, and I have always seen it as a bonus to have an extra parent. I have always loved and respected him, and have always told him that. It took a while, but when I was 10 I started calling him dad, which is also the same term I use for my bio dad. It took me a while because I wanted to make sure my bio dad was comfortable, and also my stepdad. Last year, my dad also remarried, to a woman we'll call Shona. They'd only been dating for 7 months, but Shona had been a friend of my dad's for years, so they knew each other pretty well. She was my Aunt Shona for ages. As with my stepdad, Shona and I have always gotten on. We do clash a little sometimes, but that's more because we're both quite similar in terms of personality. Yesterday night, while cooking together, Shona turned to me and asked why I didn't call her mom. I responded just by saying because you're not my mom. I admit I could have worded it better, but Shona got really upset. She started saying how for years she has been like a mother to me, which I admit is somewhat true because she was always in close proximity, like a guardian would be. But again I just viewed her like an aunt. She then brought up how I called my stepdad dad, so what was the difference? I tried telling her that it took me years to start addressing my stepdad in that way, but she cut me off by saying she and I have already known each other for years, so that was irrelevant. I wanted to make it clear at no point was she shouting or being rude, she was just genuinely upset. She then asked me if I would ever call her mom, and I said I didn't know. My dad came home a little later, and he came into my room to tell me that Shona was upset because I'd said that I don't know if I would ever view her as my mom. And I said A, that's not what I said, and B, at the end of the day, she isn't my mom, she's my stepmom. He, like Shona, brought up my stepdad, and how I viewed him like a dad, and how it was unfair I wasn't giving Shona the same chance. He also said it was quite petty and all I had to do was tell her I'd try calling her mom. Now this morning my mom came to pick me up, and I left without saying goodbye to Shona. She wouldn't come out of her room. I feel really bad about it now, but I'm also really confused about whether or not I was really the a-hole in the situation. So, am I the unreasonable one? Edit 1. Thank you all for your responses. I try and get to them all, but there's a lot. I'll try to answer questions where I can. I texted Shona a couple of hours ago to see if she'd be willing to talk, but she hasn't responded yet. There's no way of telling if she's even opened it, so I'm not going to assume she's ignoring me. My dad reached out to ask if I was okay earlier, and I said yes. Nothing else other than that. Sorry. I'll keep you all updated when Shona responds. I'm a girl by the way, meant to say. Not the unreasonable one. First step to being called mom is to not ask to be called mom. Edit. Thanks for the silver kind stranger. Not the unreasonable one. If she wants the title she has to earn it, and sulking in her room like a teenager is not earning it. Am I the unreasonable one for refusing to have a third child with my wife because she wants a boy? My 35 years old male wife, 29 years old female, and I have 2 girls, 3 and 2. She wants to have a third child because, in her words, she wants her little prince. She wants a boy. In other words, this is a hot button issue for me because I was the third boy in my family. It's an open secret that my parents had me hoping for a girl. My parents loved me, took good care of me, and gave me a good life. But every time I think about them feeling disappointed when I was born another boy it really hurts my feelings if I'm being honest. So when I consider that we are flipping a coin on our hypothetical third child I can't stand the thought that my wife would be disappointed if it turns out to be a girl. I would like a third kid, but in my opinion we shouldn't have one because we specifically want a son. I asked my wife okay, what if we have another girl? She answered then we should try one last time. If we have another girl so be it. We are a family of daughters. I just think her attitude is wrong and only want to have another kid with her if she doesn't care about the gender. But maybe I'm being unfair due to personal bias. Am I the unreasonable one? Update. Thanks to everyone who posted. A lot to think about. It's possible that I've made too much out of things, but if we do end up having a boy I may have to watch out for her spoiling him. as some have suggested. Adoption is a good suggestion. 2. IVF is a possibility, but I find the idea a little creepy, for some reason. Definitely don't want a fourth kid though whatever happens. I got off to a slightly late start as it is. Nah, you don't have to have a third kid, but I do think you're reading too much into this based on your own struggles. I know so many people who have said they wanted their third or even fourth baby to be a boy or a girl and have been thrilled regardless. Not the unreasonable one. People who want a certain gender child tend to not think about the impact it will have on the kid who is not the gender they wanted. Am I the unreasonable one for rehoming our dog? Throw away. 2 years ago my husband wanted a husky. I agreed only if responsibility is split. He had labs growing up and Australian shepherds. I warned him about high-energy dogs, how if they don't burn it off it's like having another toddler. Our kids were 1 year and 3 years. We adopted Shadow who was 8 months. Things were great at first. We work from home and have acres of land so we were able to give the pup his needs. A year ago my husband became depressed. I took on all household chores, the kids, and the dog. I struggled to balance. Shadow started to act out. Can't blame him. A husky unable to run isn't a happy pup. Few months ago we found out our youngest is allergic to dogs. Allergists said Shadow wouldn't be an issue as long as we keep up on cleaning and once old enough we'll talk about medication/shots. I sat my husband down and told him pull his weight or I will find Shadow a home. He helped for a month. Our son's allergies flared up so bad the allergist suggested rehoming because it's not fair to both our son and the dog. I agreed, but my husband didn't. I contacted a friend who's single/childless, has the time/ability, and great home/yard to give Shadow a wonderful life. Shadow already loves her so it made sense, plus we'd be able to see him still as he's just a few roads over. Shadow left a few days ago when husband was out with the kids. The kids are upset, but took it well. My husband threw such a fit, calling me a selfish a-hole and more. Now I feel like dirt. Am I the unreasonable one for rehoming Shadow when my husband didn't want to? Update. I didn't expect this to take off. I no longer feel as bad and know my husband's name calling was wrong. Here's some info that people have asked about that I was unable to fit into the original. I told my husband many times he needed to pick up his slack. It became even more serious of a discussion the last 2 times as they were both the night after the allergist appointments. He knew he had to help out to be able to make Shadow and our son's allergy work out. He knew after the last allergist appointment I would be looking for a home for Shadow. He knew all he had to do was pick up his half of housework or Shadow's care. He just didn't believe I would do it. He is in therapy for his depression. It's only helped a little and he is trying to find a medication that works for him. Maybe I'm the off for saying this, but his depression is not a valid reason to hang on to Shadow and make his life and our son's life miserable. My husband is an adult with many forms of coping mechanisms and resources versus our son who's little and can't help his allergy. My son is 3 now that has the allergies. He has been to pulmonary and ENT specialists when symptoms first started: congestion, watery eyes, and shortness of breath. He was thought to have asthma and blocked airflow from enlarged adenoids and tonsils. After treatments and surgery didn't work out, they suggested an allergist who tested for basically everything: food, animals, outside and inside allergies. Nobody is allergic to dogs in our family, so we were shocked. Our son worsened because of how bad a husky sheds and I was unable to keep up with all the housework. We have carpet, so anyone with indoor allergies or knowledge of them knows how horrible that is. His allergy went unknown for a bit of time because we used to both share the responsibilities of our whole household and therefore the house was cleaned daily. His allergies weren't as bad as they are now because of this. I found I had to wait to do the pickup when they were all gone. My husband would have caused a scene and not allowed Shadow to go with our friend of many years. There's no doubt about it. This would have scared/upset the children and end up upsetting Shadow. It just would have been chaos and more traumatic for the kids, Shadow, and our friend. And yes, I worried about Shadow being stressed out/upset also. He's a really good boy. The type that if someone's upset he makes it his mission to love them extra. Just imagining him scared and worried about us all while in a backseat looking out the window unable to comfort the screaming and crying mess in front of him. That's not how I wanted any of us involved to remember that day. People are concerned for the kids. The reason I didn't mention them much is because for a 3- and 5-year-old they handled this very mature compared to their father. I expected tears, questions, and for them to not understand fully, and that was taken care of. There was no needs for goodbyes. My kids know it's see you later to Shadow instead, as they are able to visit and see him every day. He's living a few roads down where we had permission to visit anytime even before Shadow lived there. We are over each other houses a lot. She was even our to-go dog sitter if we ever needed one. It's why I knew she would be a great fit. Our friends passes our house in the afternoon during her normal running route. She normally stops by, but has been avoiding their route temporarily because of my husband. The kids have gone over to see Shadow and play with him in his new yard, and all three surprisingly were fine when it was time to leave. More information. I'm sorry for so much edits. I never thought that certain details would actually matter so much. That's my fault. I felt such guilt that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough to balance everything. I'm not Superwoman. No, I won't be rehoming my husband. This is not like him at all. Before his depression he was a lively person. We just have to work through this and get him on track so he can live a healthy, productive life filled with joys again while managing the depression properly. My husband reduced his hours at work when this started, which I supported. We figured that would help him focus on his mental health better, less stress, happier life. We thought we can live comfortable off my income being the main source and half the income he was used to pulling in without dipping into our savings/emergency funds. We can't afford to take Shadow to the groomers frequently, expensive products or services to help maintain the household, and such. Also, people seem to think I just wanted Shadow gone, and that's not the truth at all. He was my snuggle buddy when watching movies. His doggy bed was right next to me on my side of the bed so I can keep a hand on him while I slept. I adored that fluffy racer and would wake up 4 a.m. just to stand outside to enjoy coffee and watch him play in the snow. Those beautiful intense blue eyes staring at me waiting for me to wake up, and his silly excitement when he realized I was finally. I love him. That will never change. I did this because I felt it was best for Shadow and our son. Not the unreasonable one. Your partner refused to help you create the environment in which Shadow can stay, and your son isn't constantly dealing with allergies. Plus, sounds like you ensured Shadow would be well cared for. Everyone sucks here. You did the right thing for Shadow, but you did it behind your family's back. You didn't give the kids or your husband a proper goodbye. I can only imagine how damaging that can be for a child. Am I the unreasonable one for letting a friend and his ex-GF get incorrect tattoos in my language? I was born and raised in Ireland. While Irish Gaelic is sadly dying out, my grandparents spoke it fluently and taught it to my mother, so I, along with my brother, was raised bilingual and can speak both English and Irish. I moved to England about 2 years ago now. There's a guy who I'm friendly with, but he has this thing about Ireland. He's one of those people who's like, I know I seem English as they come, but my mother's cousin's piano teacher's dog was an Irish setter, so I'm part Irish. He talks about wanting to go to Ireland all the time, and he has asked me to teach him Irish to connect with our culture. I'm trying to be both vague and specific at the same time to give me some deniability, but also communicate what kind of person I'm dealing with here. He's been seeing this girl for about 1.5 years. She's in the same boat as him, both in terms of heritage and fondness for Ireland, and she's also talked about wanting to learn the language. Around 6 months ago they asked me to translate the word soulmate into Irish. Here's the issue with that: there is no word for soulmate. There's a word for soul, and a word for mate, and if you put them together it makes Anam Cara. But that basically means soul friend, and isn't generally considered a romantic thing, and technically speaking it's not even grammatically correct and should be the other way around. But this is the popular approximation of it. I did explain, but he said that I was probably mistaken, because the concept of soulmates is universal. I went, well then Anam Cara it is, then, because I wasn't about to argue with him over the literal translation of a vague abstract concept in a language only I spoke. If he thought he was right, then why waste the energy correcting him? This isn't the first or last time I've had to take this approach with him. 6 or so months later, they've broken up, and my friend has messaged me asking if there's any variations on the phrase Anam Cara. I asked why. He said that when they asked me for a translation of soulmate it was because they wanted to get matching tattoos for their first anniversary. I then pretty much said that as Anam Cara is closer to meaning best mate than soulmate, he can just apply it to a good friend of his. He then had a fit, basically said he couldn't believe I'd let him get an incorrect tattoo, said he'd have to get a full cover-up now, and that I didn't even try correcting him. I responded that if I'd known this was a tattoo then I'd have done more, but added that he's not the most receptive to correction. My exact phrasing was, have you tried correcting you? I'm living with my dad and brother, and they both overheard. My brother is firmly on my side, but my dad, who's English and made a similar mistake while married to Mom, says I should have done more to get context, correct him, and even said I should offer to pay half the cost of the cover-up because it's partially my fault for letting him get the wrong thing. Am I the unreasonable one? Not the unreasonable one, you explained, but he didn't want to hear it. His heart was already set on it. His problem. Also, I met a white dude at a bar once who bragged that he had the Chinese characters for live in the moment tattooed on his neck. I didn't tell him that it translated closer to health now. Not the unreasonable one. He never told you it was for permanent etching into his skin, so due diligence is on him to confirm. You were nice enough to find a close translation for him when he pushed it instead of messing with him. My friends would have given me the word for stupid person or something in this scenario, lol. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.